Good. Good? Awesome. So I really like what Mango did in the last talk in there. If we could all scoot forward to the front, that might help. Then Marian won't have to talk so loud, maybe.
But I have a big voice, so it's okay.
So this is Marian Kalb. She's from Hunger Free Colorado. She's a special programs director, and she's going to talk to you about food stamps, access, barriers, and impact. So I think this will be a really awesome talk. I'm really excited for it. If you want to take a look at your program, you can read the little description. I'm just going to let her go ahead and get started so we don't take up too much more time. Enjoy!
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody for showing up this late in the afternoon. I know it gets tough after a while, so thanks for being here. And I am Marian Kalb from Hunger Free Colorado. I work on a number of different projects. And Hunger Free, our mission is basically to end hunger in Colorado. That's our mission for Hunger Free, and our vision is that food is a basic right for everyone, which I'm sure you've heard probably earlier in the day as well. So what we do is we work on a number of different programs, and we have a hotline. It's a free hotline that people can call anywhere in Colorado and get referred out to different food sources. We also, when we have folks on the line, we screen them to see if they're eligible for food stamps or SNAP. And if they are, we will then walk them through that application on the phone. We have an electronic signature we can use for them, and then we send the application off. So we try to do that. And we also have a project called Hunger Through My Lens, and it's a photo voice project that works with 10 women talking about their experiences in being on food stamps or on SNAP. One of them is a doctor who has a family of 4 who had a stroke and can no longer be a surgeon. We have relatively high-paid single women who have lost their jobs and don't know where to go. So it's a very broad array of people that we find coming into the food stamp world. And in Colorado, the official name for food stamps is food assistance. At the national level, it's SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Thank you. Very good. And then there's SNAP, which is what I'm going to be referring to mostly throughout the presentation. A couple other things we're doing. Is anybody in Longmont? Anybody from Longmont in here? Okay, working with Longmont, Inglewood, and Aurora to set up summer feeding sites for kids. Since during the summer they often do not have access to food, and so this would at least give them 1 meal a day. And I work with a consortium of food pantries, and we're working on trying to make them more efficient and serve client needs better and operate on client choice, which we very firmly believe in at Hunger Free. The other thing that we try to do at Hunger Free is when we have folks that are applying for programs, when we have people that are part of our Hunger Through My Lens voice project, we try to work with them and have them kind of go from applicant to advocate. And we do work with a lot of the folks that are on food stamps or have been on food stamps to tell their stories in different places, to get the word out about what the process was that they had to go through to get food stamps, and have them meeting with the right people that can change the system and make that better. We also work with moms and students when we're working on school meal programs and have them testify at the state capitol. And so we try to really bring in the folks that are being affected as much as possible and have them be their own voice. Okay. So, oh my goodness. So unfortunately, I did have a video that we're not going to be able to see here, and I just have to let you know that the real colors are green and black. Okay, not pink and yellow, good for Easter, but just so you know, it kind of disturbs me every time I look at it, but I will get used to it. So when we start thinking about who's part of the SNAP program, 1 in 6 Coloradans face hunger sometime during the month. 1 in 4 children face hunger sometimes during the month. And it is very much a silent epidemic. If we think a little bit about, say, the gay population maybe 30 years ago and the gay population today, and what the changes in attitudes have been towards the LGBT community, it certainly isn't perfect, and we have Mike Pence to remind us of that. But we've made a lot of progress. We made a lot of progress in that area. When we look at hunger, hunger is really a silent epidemic. A neighbor may talk to you about having lost a job or about having not being able to make payments on a house, but it's very rare when you hear somebody say, I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids tonight. The SNAP program itself is a food assistance program. It's a federal one, and it's supposed to be the first line of defense for folks that find themselves poor and without money to buy food. It's authorized in the Farm Bill, which comes up every 5 years, but it's also appropriated during the other years, and so there's constantly a fight to keep SNAP alive. People that receive SNAP get EBT cards, the electronic benefit transfer cards that they can use, and it comes once a month and it's loaded with their allotment on that. And so they can go into the grocery store and use that to swipe it. You don't know if it's a credit card, you don't know what it is, and so it just kind of makes it an easier and not quite so obvious process. In Colorado, the average food stamp allowance or SNAP allowance is about $136 a month, and that breaks down to about about $1.50 a meal. So it's not a lot of money to feed you or your family. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. How do I go back?
The average you mentioned is per person or per family?
I'm sorry?
The average you mentioned is per person?
Per person, that's right. Okay, and now, there we go. Okay. That doesn't look good. Okay, anybody know this stuff? Great, thanks. So the characteristics of SNAP households, about 40% of working families are eligible for SNAP. And what we've found a lot is that people that have been unemployed or underemployed, certainly relying on SNAP benefits, also going to pantries, to food pantries. When they get a job, if it's a minimum wage job, and particularly if they have a child or two to take care of, it's still not enough money to buy food for the month. And so those folks are still coming back to pantries, even though they may or may not at that point be eligible for SNAP. 40% of the folks are working families, 45% are children, and about 74% represent working women and children. So these are the eligibility standards. In terms of income, if you're a family of 1, you cannot have an annual income over $15,180. If you are a family of 4, you cannot have an income more than $31,008. So The numbers are, they're pretty low. And, and they're also looking at the 130% of poverty level in terms of the money that you have coming in. So for SNAP in Colorado, we rank 46th in the nation for participation in SNAP. And over the past 4 years, we've been, or actually for a while, we've been in the 40s, somewhere for about forever. And what that means is that 57% of those that are eligible are participating, but 43% are eligible, but they are not receiving benefits. The average national participation rate is 75%, which is quite a bit higher than Colorado.
I have a question, sorry.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a large group that are eligible that are participating.
Right.
What are you finding are the reasons for that? Is it access? Is it education? Is it pride? Is it they think their situation's temporary? I'm just curious on what you have found. Because I know you guys have done a great job, by the way, of increasing that tremendously.
Thank you. Thanks. You know, there are a number of different reasons. One is that there needs to be more outreach. There's not enough outreach to let folks know that these benefits are available to them. And that can fall on the counties, on the state, and on us to try and make that happen. It's kind of interesting if you go back and you look at some of the data for when the Affordable Health Care Act came online, people that had food stamps and health insurance, when the Affordable Care Act came online, all of a sudden, all of these people were getting health care, but the amount of people getting SNAP benefits just kind of stayed the same. It just stayed the same. And they both had about equal participation rates. So, you know, the big push over Obamacare and the big push to get folks into Medicaid, if that's where they need to be, was very successful. And so I think, you know, part of that question is how can we make that happen again for food? Because it didn't happen for food. And there are other reasons too, but maybe we can keep that for a little bit later. So there are 3 primary indicators when you're trying to measure SNAP and whether or not it's working. One is the timeliness of processing the applications. One is accuracy, making sure that the applications are correct, and that the payments are correct. And then there's also participation. What are the participation rates? Okay, so in Boulder County, 95% is the federal standard. Am I in your way? Let's get out of the way here. 95% is the federal standard. That is what they expect the number will be of correct applications processed. And so in Boulder, expedited applications, which have about a 7-day period in order to fill out, y'all are actually really good at 94%. Regular applications, which is a 30-day timeline, also really good at 95%. And redeterminations, still really good, even though it's a little bit less. And in all of these, Boulder ranked in the top 10 of the state. So SNAP participation in Boulder County. In 2014, Boulder had a little over 17,000 individuals issued an average of about $2.2 million in food stamps. However, Boulder's participation rate is 36%, which is well below the state average of 57%.
That's 36 of the eligible.
I'm sorry?
36% of the eligible folks.
Right, exactly. I mean, so we know what that is going to mean in terms of access for households. In the state of Colorado, over 40% of low-income eligible families do not have access to that benefit. And when we break that down to Boulder County, where 36% is the participation rate, those not participating and not receiving that benefit rises almost to 65%. And I think a lot of the impacts of low participation rates are somewhat self-evident. Certainly, there's more hunger. When there's more hunger, there are more poorer health outcomes. It gets difficult to learn. I know if I'm sitting in a room and I'm trying to learn something and I'm really hungry, I have a hard time doing it. And for many of these folks, it's really chronic, and so that actually is a difficulty when it comes to wanting to have educational outcomes, good educational outcomes. And perhaps the one piece that folks may not think about as much is that when there are low participation rates and those dollars are left on the table, it means that there's also a negative financial impact to local stores, groceries, and to other businesses in the community.
You've used the word hunger a couple times in your talk, and I just wanted you to define what you mean by hunger.
For us, the way that we look at hunger is if you spend any time of any part of the year wanting or needing food or not sure whether or not you're going to have food. So a surprising figure, to me anyways, was that every $5 in SNAP benefits generates $9.20 in community spending. And if you think about it, if you give people money to spend on food, that then frees up money to spend on other pieces. And so that's where this comes in. So if we do a what if with Boulder County, if the participation rates were the national average of 75%, the average benefit issued per month would have been 4.7 million instead of 2.2 million. And what that means is if you multiply that out by the year, this is the amount of money that would be available in order to buy food and the amount of money that would go into direct economic development. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting because when you think about who are your allies when you're trying to work on SNAP issues, it's usually the nonprofit groups, and there might be some state involvement or something like that. But there is this whole untapped group of people that stand to benefit if the SNAP benefits are used more widely. If more people participate in them, it can have a really significant financial impact. And if we look at that at the state level, the state loses out on over $235 million in grocery sales and $400 million of economic development a year. So it's really very substantial. So how can we all be involved in trying to make this situation better, given that it's got a lot of room for improvement? And it's the county folks that administer the SNAP program. So talking to them about your concerns is a really good first step, and which and shows that you're interested in this topic and you want to see something move on it. You can bring folks that have been on SNAP or on SNAP now to tell their stories. Those can be some really powerful stories, both around what it took to apply, how difficult was that process to apply, and also what the food stamps really mean for their family. So trying to work with the county to make positive changes is a good way to go. There are other ways to be involved. By referring folks to our Hunger Free Colorado hotline, we will get them in touch with the places that they need to be, filling out the applications that they need to do. Our hotline staff will train you So if you have an organization with staff that have the ability to help people fill out SNAP applications, we'll come in and give you the whole lowdown on how that happens, and give you the ability then to sign people up in your own town or county. We are also in the process of developing county report cards, and so what we're going to be doing is for each county rating them on how well they've done on the different aspects of SNAP. And Boulder is the first one we're going to do. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be on our website. And it would also, it's also a good thing to bring into a meeting with the county as well. And then lastly, we really need to build coalitions around the state that simply say, we're not going to take any more cuts. We actually need additional funding, and this is why, plus there's this huge economic development benefit for the state. And so this is my last slide, and this is our food resource hotline is up there, and as well as our website, and you can find a plethora of resources there to use as well. And so I think from there I'll just open it up for discussion.
Thank you.
Is it 303-855 or is it 855-855?
855-855.
Cool.
Yeah, the number is 855-855-4626. And I also have some postcards with me so that if folks want to take them back with them, it'll have all the hotline information on it in English and Spanish.
Yeah, you used to have a truck that used to go out to communities. That might be something for you to mention too that's been successful.
Yes, thank you. I forgot to put that in my notes. I appreciate that. We have a mobile food van that will go pretty much anywhere it's asked, and will sign people up for food stamps right there on the spot. So if you're having an event that you think is going to draw a population that would benefit from being part of the food stamp program or the SNAP program, we can sign people up. The person that goes out is quite wonderful. She speaks English and Spanish and does a really good job. I don't know, some of you may have heard a little while ago about some apartment complexes that were closing, low-income apartment complexes, and people were getting kicked out and they had nowhere to go. We were there that day with our van, trying to help people not just with SNAP, but with other resources as well. Yes?
Do you have any insight into, specifically in Boulder County, what are the barriers to sign up? And also, who are the people that aren't signing up? Are there specific subpopulations that are just not taking advantage?
That's a great question, and I actually don't know. I did try to figure that out a little before I came, but I thought there might actually be some expertise in the audience of folks that might know that as well.
Well, yeah, just to respond to that, I was wondering kind of how the eligible folks data was collected, because I in the past have income qualified, but haven't applied because I live in a co-op where I share food with others.
Okay.
And so like my house as a whole would not necessarily income qualify, although my
Right.
And so I think that's an interesting kind of thing to throw in there. Is just like, who are you sharing food with? Who is your family?
Right, and they actually do have provisions for that. I don't know specifically what they are, but if you are in a house and you're in a household and you are the only one with SNAP, there is a way to do that. And the hotline people will tell you how to do that. I have to just say, if anybody runs into trouble anywhere, our hotline is fabulous.
No, I'm just curious about the barrier question, about
Yeah.
the paperwork question.
Yeah.
Because the only anecdotal thing I know is, like, I know with veterans benefits, sometimes it's very complicated to get through the paperwork process and all of that. I don't know anything about this process here, so
Okay,
can
yeah.
you walk through
Yeah.
a little bit of that more?
So some of the barriers in terms of people signing up for SNAP, there are 64 counties in Colorado. Some of them have different applications, so they're not all the same. There are, the application itself is generally around 28 pages. And we're working with them right now to try to get it down to about 8 pages, but it is 20.
40 something.
I'm
It
sorry?
used to be in the 40s.
So, yes, so progress has been made.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, probably not enough, but at least it's going in the right direction. The other piece of it is that when folks try to apply for food stamps, they may be on the phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. A lot of these folks don't have a lot of minutes on their phone. They run out of them. Somebody tries to call them back. They don't have their phone. They'll go wait in the county office. County office waits can be from anywhere from 1 to 4 hours to all day. And so it requires some real tenacity to get in there and to make that work for you. And I think that there is also that there's a stigma around food stamps, and we see it particularly with the older populations when we're recommending that they go through that process and apply for them. There's very much that kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps attitude that we see more in the older population, not so much in kind of middle or young folks. So trying to feed seniors can be a little bit more difficult than feeding other populations. They have also been cut back drastically in the amount of SNAP benefits they receive due to some sort of income calculation with medical deductions on their tax forms. And so there are a number of folks trying to remedy that. But right now, for many seniors, the benefit is only $16 a month. And with $16 a month, is it worth applying for with a 28-page application? Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah, and this may have changed, but I also thought you had to have a physical address in order to apply for SNAP, so people experiencing homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you would think they would qualify, but not so if they don't have an address to send mail to. And I'm also curious about the eligibility piece of it, and then whether or not they were counting or considering people who are not citizens, so citizenship status.
Okay.
And if so, I'm wondering if there's a fear against applying to any kind of government service.
Right.
Based on status.
Give me the first part of your question.
The house address.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
People experiencing homelessness.
So technically, the federal government requires that you get at least a zip code, if not an address from people. However, food stamps are eligible. I mean, homeless people are eligible for food stamps, and I'm not sure how that works if you are a homeless person applying and they're asking you for an address. That I don't know.
I've done that.
Okay, here's our expert.
So what I was asked was to give a mailing address where I could receive mail. So I talked to a friend and they were like, yeah, you can give our address. The problem was I don't receive mail, I wasn't interacting with that friend enough to receive the mail. So what I really needed was to be able to give them an email address to send me all the papers that they would send.
Right.
But they don't do that. They actually, at least 5 years ago, did not do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, they just require an address of some sort. They allow you to put a shelter as your address.
That's right. They do allow you to put shelter as an address. So that might be a way to deal with that. In terms of documented and undocumented workers, if you are a documented worker and have met the residence requirements, then you can be on food stamps. If you are a refugee or an asylum, you can also receive food stamps for up to 7 years. So those populations are covered. Anything else? Any other thoughts why it might be a problem in Boulder County?
I mean, it's possibly because of the good work that Barbara and Hannah are doing and stuff too. I mean, from a regular community outside. I mean, Boulder's a special place.
Right, right.
It does have a lot of consciousness and a lot of great programs that help people. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really interested in understanding the delta. And the goal should be 100%, right?
Absolutely,
It
you
should
bet.
be- It's a good program. It's administered relatively well. It's not easy to get onto, but it's really the first line that if we can encourage everyone who needs it and take away those obstacles that they have to get it, it's a starting point to really, I mean, the thing should be, we don't accept anybody in our community going hungry, right? That should really be it.
Yep, you
So I'm
bet.
very interested in hearing more, but that's just one theory I had, is that maybe some of these great programs they have is keeping them low.
Many of our clients don't, I'm Barbara from the Harvest Pantry, and many of our clients do get food stamps. And so we ask them that on the questionnaire that they fill in when they register with us. Families are permitted to shop once a week, and then the homeless can come in every day.
That's
and,
great.
And we do provide our address for them, so when they apply for the assistance, they can get their application.
That's wonderful.
Really, that's awesome.
It is. It is really wonderful. And I can just to let people know, I think we're just about out of time here, but having a food pantry open every day and any time for the homeless is really wonderful and does not happen around the state very often. I'm working with a number of food pantries right now, and we're doing a client satisfaction survey. And a couple of the questions that we ask them are, one is, do you ever skip a meal so somebody else can eat one? And the yes response to that was 50%. And then the other question was, do you ever go to bed hungry? And the yes response to that was 40%. So the need is huge, and pantries do a wonderful job, but they are not able to have the reach that the federal government can in making this program happen. So, so we really need to look at pushing those systems.
No, you're out of time. So the numbers you present are really staggering in a land of plenty. Why is that?
That's what we're here for.
Well,
Well, okay.
I mean,
So
the way,
we're talking about it. You're talking about magnificently large numbers
right.
that shouldn't be in this nation. Why is it?
Because it's allowed.
I think, in my mind, you know, poverty is really an overriding issue here. And when you're in poverty, it's harder to figure out what you can do, where you can go, what the resources are. If you're hungry, it's hard to operate on that empty stomach. But I do think that a lot of the reason is that we need more outreach by counties and by the feds, by anybody connected with the program to sign people up. I mean, back in 2009, when there was a recession, there was actually a loosening of some of the requirements for people. And in 2010 in Colorado, we lifted people out of poverty. I don't remember the numbers, but they were fairly significant because they were getting more food stamps. They were getting better benefits. And so those programs have the ability to do that.
So you're saying it's knowledge of the programs itself. So like a mobile van that goes into a neighborhood that perhaps is impoverished and just sits there for the day and has people come up and say, did you know you're eligible? That type of thing.
That's it.
There's no
People
simple-
may think
I
they're
know
not.
it's
People may think they're not eligible, even if they're documented. And there is still a lot of stigma to food stamps. You know, people don't feel good applying for them. You know, people go into food pantries, and if you look at them for the first time, you know, their heads are kind of down. They're, you know, it's a miserable, humiliating experience.
Yeah.
And so, you
It
know,
shouldn't be.
and it shouldn't be.
It should be.
Absolutely.
It's not going to change until we change the value. The values that we should feed everyone in our community without judgment.
Right.
Because there's economic benefits, there's community, I mean, there's plenty of arguments, but until we, as a group, get that value, it's going to be very tough.
Yeah. Time to organize grocers and local businesses. You know, this is what you guys are losing out on. Let's make that work.
We'll also make a minimum wage.
Oh, minimum wage is huge. I mean, if I wasn't working on hunger issues, I'd be working on minimum
Right,
wage.
so you let people empower themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. So I think that's
If I can hold you all for one more second and give you a prompting question to help you pick the last session of the day, which is huge. Thank you all for being here. The session in the blue room with Constance is going to be geared more towards folks that are affiliated with or thinking about affiliating with organizations that do food security or food justice work, or if that's just like the gear that you want to be thinking in on this last session. And the session in here in the orange room with John is going to be a great space to bring questions that still seem open in your mind, or like personal next steps if you're like not interested in doing work with any of these organizations. And this might not exactly be your jam, but it's still kind of like floating on the question of how do I integrate a racial justice framework with this food or non-food justice work that I do. This is a great spot to bring those. Thank you all so much.
It was such a pleasure to see you again.